Hey everyone, my name's Sarah Lavonne and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, I want to talk to you all about one of the most exciting discoveries that we have had in science for sure in my lifetime, but in the most recent years. Now, there have been very exciting things happening in science and other specialties and whatnot, but this particular one has such incredible potential to influence your labor and birth, to potentially set you up to be able to do some things to help make your labor easier, potentially less painful, and then hopefully faster. And so this is why I have dedicated the last few years to study fascia. And so today I want to tell you exactly what fascia is, how it may impact your body, and then I'm going to give you some tools to actually soften your fascia and set you up for that faster labor, which I know that's what everyone wants. The other thing you don't want is pain, right? And so what we know about fascia so far is that fascia is the second most sensitive to pain sensation in our body. Our number one most sensitive is our skin, obviously, because that helps protect our body. But second in our body is fascia. Now, if we go back to history, when I was back in nursing school, I say that's history. I hope that doesn't feel too historical because I'm not that old. But when I was in nursing school, how we studied the body was through cadaver lab. I will never forget my first day walking in and seeing the dead body that we ended up throwing gloves on, and then we had to like pull apart and look at. It was fascinating to me. It was probably a very disgusting thought to most of you. And so when we studied the body, that's really what we knew and how we learned about the body. Now, cadavers are dehydrated tissue, and something interesting about fascia is everyone's gonna look for their waters, which you should, is that fascia is mostly water. And so we didn't really know much about it because it was so hydrated. And once we were studying the body and dehydrated tissues, it sort of just got lost in there. Now in 2018, at Harvard, a group of really brilliant people that had been studying this stuff came together and said, we need to call this thing an organ system, okay? Like think brain, heart, lungs, bones, muscles. And so it's easy to think we know so much about the body, but now we're actually adding organ systems after I was in nursing school, which is just like absolutely wild to me. And so there is still so much to be discovered about what fascia is, its impact on the body. But I will say that the last few years, I have read everything I can get my hands on for fascia. I've gone to workshops, I've traveled for workshops, I've become an intermediate myofascial release practitioner. So I've taken classes on this, and I really am passionate about bringing this particular science to labor and birth. There's no one really doing it. And while we may not know too much, we know enough to be able to give you some tips to set you up for success. This is also why if you are a labor and delivery nurse, I have a class on the Bundlebird Nurses website. Specifically the name of it is Physiologic Coping, and go take that class, and I talk all about fascia. I teach you techniques to use at the bedside. And then for you birthing people, make sure you take my birth class because I do actually mention it in the birth class as well. So that being said, what is fascia? I want you to think about a raw piece of chicken, right? To start. So think in your head. And you know when you're breaking apart chicken, maybe if you're a vegetarian, I apologize on that. If you can imagine a piece of chicken, and I'll actually put a picture right here of fascia on a chicken. So when I'm dissecting a piece of chicken or I'm cutting it up, there's like this thin slimy layer on top. That is fascia. It is mostly water, and it is equal parts liquid as it is structure. And so it has this like super weird thing to it where it's for flexibility and stretch, which for labor and birth is so important. We want to make space in the pelvis in order to allow the baby through. If there's restriction, baby's not going to get through and you're not going to have that vaginal birth, while also maintaining the structures. If we didn't have fascia, our bodies would be like Jell-O and we wouldn't actually be held together. All right. Now let me define fascia for you, and I'm gonna read this to you for a complete overview, and then we're gonna talk about what it does, and then obviously how to work with your fascia. So fascia is a connective tissue system that surrounds and supports every single structure in the body. right? Now, this is down to the cellular level, including your muscles, your bones, your nerves, your blood vessels, and all of your organs. There's fascia that covers every single organ down to the cellular level. This is crazy. So imagine it's like this huge web and this network of communication in the body made primarily of collagen, elastin, and ground substance. So it like down to the microscopic level, and I'll actually put a picture of it at a microscopic level. That collagen is for support, elastin is what it sounds like, and then ground substance is the liquid surrounding it, all right? So it helps it be both strong and flexible. You think about a newborn baby, they are so flexible. Now you're gonna be thinking about your fascia with your newborn babies that like they can throw their legs over their head and they can like, woo, and there's like complete flexibility in their body. But what happens over time is gravity and life and traumas and injuries are there to help protect us. And so what our body does with our fascia in injury is it goes, I need structure and I need support to help bring the necessary blood cells there to help heal. But what ends up happening is scar tissue. And so your scar tissue, your history of whatever injuries are going to potentially affect your labor and birth. Are they gonna set you up for not success? No, not necessarily, but this is why I'm so glad you're here and we're gonna begin talking about this. If you want more about this, I'm gonna fly through this information now, but please let me know your questions and then I can follow up in either a coffee and questions or I can follow up in a future video, all right? So there's superficial fascia, and that's just under the skin, and that's normally like what we can do with a myofascial. That's what these tools are gonna help with. There's a deep fascia that actually encases or it like surrounds and separates the muscles. Otherwise, they'd just be like super sticky together. And so what it does is specifically around the muscles is it's going to create this like super glidey way that your muscles, when you stretch, when you move, when you work out, when you are not immobile, which is one of my recommendations for labor and birth, that all of a sudden your muscles can just glide. But what happens is that if there's an injury or immobility, which that's a whole nother YouTube video, okay? I go to glide and I get stuck, right? And I can't move quite as smoothly. Now for labor and birth, we want your little babies to be able to slip and slide out of you. And so you can imagine if there's restriction in any area of your body, this is what's so crazy about this stuff. If there's a restriction in anywhere in your body, it can affect anywhere else. So when we're doing myofascial release, as a practitioner, which I will drop the library of people so you can look in your area and see if you can go get these treatments. It's like my most highly recommended treatment for you to do to help soften your tissues. But when you do a myofascial release, you're actually helping to release one area, but you might actually have impact on other areas of the body. This is why partners, it is so incredibly important for you to be able to massage and touch and any kind of touch techniques in labor. They're actually not only helping with comfort and the discomfort of pain, but also they're helping with the actual release of the tissues and creating space. Okay? Now, what does fascia do? It does a lot of really cool things. So the first one is it helps create support in the body, right? And it protects the body. And so when there's particularly, like I said, an injury, it's going to say, let me help stop bleeding. Let me send the necessary blood cells there for healing. And when it creates that structural support, it creates that like solidification of the area so that it doesn't just kind of flop around, all right? The other one is huge, is our movements. So fascia is going to help with helping you be flexible, right? So it helps that glide. And so when you're pregnant, when you're in labor, that motion is lotion. I have said this for years. We now have an app for nurses to be able to help you with your motion in labor. And so when you're thinking about labor, that sort of staying still and not moving and not stretching and releasing and even just moving your body is going to impact potentially your whole body and create restriction in the body. That's like the opposite of what we want. The other thing I want you to think about is like, say like you fall asleep on a plane. And like, even now I'm like, my fascia is restricted because I can't even like put my head to my ear. But say you fall asleep on the plane and then what happens? When you wake up, you're like, I'm so creaky and like, ouch, ouch, right? And we're trying to lift my head up and then you start to stretch. Fascia crystallizes within 15 minutes of immobility. So you have your head like that for more than 15 minutes, it's gonna crystallize to help create support. But then when you start moving, you can actually release your own fascia. So what's so fascinating about it is a lot of other places, if you have a restriction or you have a pain or you have a problem, you need to go to like physical therapy for that. And you're like taking all this time to heal those tissues, but you can actually self-release. And then you can help set the body up for that movement and that openness, expansiveness. Super cool. The other one is communication. And so we're just kind of getting into what we know about the science of communication, but think about it as a highway to various places in your body. How do they all communicate? How do they say like, hey, problem, come help me? Because it's one interconnected web-like system in the body, that one place says, hey, let me send some signals. And we're finding that it's like the freeway for communication of helping our bodies all work as one, which is great. Now, healing and repair, I obviously talked about it, but it's really pivotal in the inflammatory response and then helping you to kind of communicate in the body to help for that healing. And then obviously it helps create shape in our body. Healthy fascia is soft, it's glidey like this one. Now, what does unhealthy fascia look like? It can be kind of like a ball. If you have had an injury, you may look at this. This is a hairnet, by the way. And all of a sudden, it's like, it's this pain, it's restriction, it's firm, and anything firm and restricted in the body, with it being second most sensitive to pain, you're gonna have discomfort in there. Fun fact, those knots in your back are not muscle knots, they're fascia knots in your back. And that's why you can get a massage and release them, and they release, and then you feel less discomfort, or they're not there for the rest of your life. And you don't need to go have surgery on the knots in your back. Instead, they like somehow release, even just with that stretching and that movement. Now, what happens with fascia is you start to all of a sudden manipulate the tissues. Now, the fascia is so incredibly connected to your nervous system, which is your brain. And so when you start to release the fascia, all of a sudden, it goes back to that healthy, stretchy, flexible tissue. And so it's not a ball forever, it's there to help you, and then it also can be released along the way. Now, related to your nervous system, the only way for your body to release, think about this for your labor and birth, this is all so incredibly interconnected. I could teach whole classes on this. In fact, I do for nurses. So because it's so connected to your nervous system has two sort of pedals, the gas and the brakes. Gas meaning fight or flight response. When you're scared, what happens? Adrenaline, I'm like wide awake and I'm paying attention to my surroundings and I'm kind of freaking out, right? And then there's your rest and digest, or your parasympathetic nervous system. And that is your calm nervous system. That's where you're like able to kind of release your thoughts and meditate. Or when you do my visualization class, you're in your parasympathetic, and it helps you get into your parasympathetic, that calm nervous system. Labor, physiologically, and within the hormones that work for labor, works best in a parasympathetic state. When you're in a fight or flight, it counteracts your labor hormones. And also, along those lines, our fascia releases in a parasympathetic state. And so it may take a second, and it may take some sort of waiting it out and telling your brain, I'm safe here, in order for your tissues to release. It's all so incredibly interconnected. I could talk about this forever. In fact, this is gonna have to be a part 2 because I'm talking a lot, but I hope you find it super interesting. And this is the why behind why so many of these things can actually help you. All right, so I've talked so much that I'm actually gonna come back for a part 2. Leave you hanging, I'm sorry. And we will talk about the impact of fascia and then all of the tools you can use in order to help release your fascia, set your body up for more space, less pain, and hopefully a faster labor. Thanks everyone for spending your time with me here. If you want more from me, you can check out the description box down below. There's everything there, including my new bundle birth class, which is new and improved, and it includes so many of these little tips / a full comprehensive view on labor and birth. There's also a free visualization for you there that is my gift to you. Everything is linked down below that will help calm your nervous system. If you're feeling at all nervous about the hospital, even if you're not nervous, if you're just like, oh, it's unknown, I'm gonna be in a new environment, I don't know how I feel about this, check out my free visualization class. And then if you love it, there's a full visualization class of various things like softening your body, letting your cervix release, creating a calm and peaceful birth for your labor, birth, and life. Make sure you subscribe down below and don't forget to flex and flow, and I will see you soon. Bye. Healthy fascia. Healthy fascia. Oh my God, I need to get into a flow. International Fascia Congress, the Congress of International Fascia People. The International Congress of Fascia People. The Fascia, International Fascia Congress. I have no idea what they're called. Actually, that's the Fascia Congress of International Fascia Vicious People. Okay, I'm just gonna cut that.